To a world where everyone and their sister has a podcast comes another one. Join us weekly as we explore the dark back alleys of irreverence and the spider-infested corners of nerdkind. This is the Irreverent Nerd Podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my fellow nerds. So, it is 9:57 p.m. on Tuesday night, and this is day 5 of quarantine for myself and my family. It hasn't gone as bad as it could. The kids have certainly gotten a little stir-crazy. Myself and my wife have gotten a bit stir-crazy. We did have a bit of an adventure today. Our minivan broke down and started doing some crazy shit. Literally, when we had turned it off, my wife had turned it off, and when I got there to help and we turned it back on, every warning light came on, and quite a few of them stayed on. You know how sometimes they'll all flash on, but it's check engine light, check this, check that, and it wouldn't start. The battery wasn't dead, it had some power, but yeah, the thing was not wanting to turn over and ignite whatever needed to be ignited. So yeah, we had to just a nice AAA adventure, and then when the truck got there, apparently it had not been communicated with the driver that we had COVID. And AAA has a policy that if you have had COVID and you've been in your car, apparently they have to wait 14 days before they can pick it up with the flatbed tow truck, because he has to enter the vehicle at least somewhat in order to get it set up. And he's not allowed to do that if anyone who's had COVID has been in the vehicle within 14 days of that point. So we had to call another type of tow truck that can just grab it from the back wheels and take it without having to enter the vehicle. And it should now be over at our mechanic finally. So yeah, that was our COVID adventure for the day. I'm hoping to get back to work maybe Thursday, Friday. My work has fairly relaxed rules. It's kind of if I feel up to coming back in, I just need to wear a mask for the first 5 days, so I'm probably going to get a K95 or something like that, just to be on the safe side. It's been a mild case for the most part for us. Symptoms not any worse than your common flu or cold virus. But, I don't wish that on anybody, not to mention the quarantine that you have to go through, which sucks. But I have been working from home. This is the most I've worked from home, maybe ever, actually. I've only recently transitioned into a role that allows me to work from home on a daily basis. I'm involved in purchasing in my current job, connected to supply chain. So I've taken on the bulk of the purchasing responsibilities, as well as sourcing for my company, which manufactures industrial fans. And I'm not going to go into more detail than that, but yeah, we do some pretty cool stuff. And I really enjoy working there. It's a wonderful company to work. In other news, Spotify went down today. So I found this out, as I was working from home. I usually will put something soothing or some kind of music, white noise, etc. One of my favorites is binaural beats. There's different binaural beats albums on Apple Music that I'll check out from time to time. But today I was listening to lo-fi hip-hop on YouTube. I think it's the Lo-Fi Girl? Something like that. I forget what her channel name is. She's also on Spotify. And it's this animation. It's really cool. It's anime style, Japanese anime style animation that's on loop, and it's just very comforting, this lo-fi hip-hop. Any of you listen to it, it's very relaxing, and it helps you kind of get in the flow mentally. But on the chat there was a live chat going on, and people were saying Spotify went down, like Russia took down their servers. Don't quote me on that. I have not verified it. I did look up on the news. I saw some information on cyber warfare, but nothing specific about Russia, the country, for some reason attacking Spotify's servers. Obviously, I'm sure Spotify probably gets hosted on someone else's servers, like Amazon or someone like that. I don't know for sure. But I just thought that was interesting. And I listen to Spotify a lot, and obviously this podcast is going to go up on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. In fact, check us out on Apple Podcasts. It just got added, I think a few days ago. Got up on there. Those are the only two platforms I'm on currently, unless you also count Anchor, which I don't know if too many people listen to podcasts on Anchor. Most people probably just use it to create them, although I don't know, actually. I could be wrong about that. Apparently mine has been getting some listens on Anchor, but I think the majority of my audience, I mean, such as you are at this point, comes from Spotify. So that's it for the news of the day, both in my life and in the world around us. So we are going to move on to the next segment. Welcome to segment number 2, where I will be reviewing a Batman the Animated Series episode. So, this is an episode from Season 1. Hold on, let me make sure I get the intro correctly. It's called If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? And I really love the way the Riddler is portrayed in Batman the Animated Series. And I just looked up the credits because I wasn't sure who the voice actor was. It's always been my favorite Riddler up to this point. I have not seen Paul Dano's performance yet, as I told you last week. I will be seeing that hopefully Thursday night. We'll see how that goes. But up to this point, my favorite is from the animated series, and I just found out that John Glover, yes, the John Glover, did the voice of the Riddler, at least in this episode, and I think in all of them, because I believe the voice stays consistent, at least through the first 3 seasons of the animated series. I'm like, I just found that out, like, literally, like, 30 seconds ago, technically, 90 seconds ago. Anyway, I was excited. John Glover, obviously, any of you who love DC Comics and were of age when Smallville came out know who John Glover is. He played Lex Luthor's father in Smallville, which he was one of the highlights, frankly, of that, as was Michael Rosenbaum, I guess technically, who played his son, Lex. I enjoyed that series when it came out. I still have yet to see all episodes. It has 10 seasons. Come on, give me a break. I have seen almost all of the X-Files. My wife and I have been watching that. And I will do an episode on that. If I can convince her to join me, that'll be a fun joint episode where we'll talk about our experience watching all 11 fucking seasons of the X-Files. But anyway, back to Batman the Animated Series. So in this episode, we get introduced to Edward Nygma. So you come into the episode and you see the place where he works, Competitron. And like in big letters underneath the name of the company, right out there on the front of the building, is Riddle of the Minotaur. It's apparently a computer game that was a massive hit for Competitron. And Edward Nygma was the designer of said game. And it involves a maze, no surprise there. But in addition to the maze, you have to solve riddles. We find out this out a little bit later when Robin is playing it in the Batcave on a $50 million computer, as Alfred observes. Like, Master Bruce, do you really believe that's the best use of a $50 million computer? He's like, but it's great, Alfred! Anyway, so Edward Nygma is the designer, but he has a nasty boss. I don't know if this guy is supposed to be a CEO or CFO. They don't really bother to tell you, just he's someone who's above Edward Nygma in the company. And he and I'm assuming other assorted board members, etc., have decided to screw Edward Nygma out of his royalties. Edward Nygma is apparently suing the company for royalties because they have been failing to pay him, even though he was the designer. They have decided that they are laying claim to his IP, if you will, which there's a lot of legal ins and outs to that when you're producing something for a company. But they fire him in order to avoid paying him royalties. So, fast forward 2 years, Edward Nygma has been plotting his revenge against Competitron. And we go to a scene in a boardroom in downtown Gotham. Bruce Wayne is there, looking bored. He yawns at one point, which I think happened fairly often in the animated series. I believe this was carried on even into Chris Nolan's. He gave a little nod. I don't know if it's to the animated series, but just Bruce Wayne, like, tired obviously because of his nightly activities, but to others looks bored. But then he like wakes up towards the end there, like, and apparently he's trying to work a deal to get Competitron to move to, or to at least to open a plant in Gotham to bring jobs into town. So that's going down. While that's going down, across the street on like a New York style marquee, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word, is the Riddler's first riddle that we see, and he asks Mockinridge, I believe that's the guy's name, why do multi-million-dollar deals break down in the wasteland? And the wasteland is a clue both that ties both to the Riddle of the Minotaur game, but also to a club, apparently, that Mockinridge owns there in Gotham. So he gets abducted from his own club, later by Nygma. Batman and Robin Batman figures out the clue. So they bust through a stained glass window, which is in the roof for some reason, of this club called Wasteland. And they're not successful in rescuing, I should say, Mockinridge from the Riddler and his henchmen, who are much bigger than him. Normal Batman, bulky, massive, ridiculously large henchmen. Anyway, they're unsuccessful because the Riddler shoots something out of the end of his umbrella, which turns into a giant Chinese, what do you call it? What do you call those things? Those really annoying things you stick your thumbs in both ends and you pull apart, and it's like finger cuffs. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, so Robin gets stuck in that, and then it catches on fire as they're going out. And, like, Batman's, like, carrying Robin on his shoulder, and Robin's like, it's getting hot in here, get me out of here. It's just hilarious. So, Riddler, absconds with Meckenridge as... I don't think he was originally intended to be bait. Like, Batman and Robin were not necessarily in the cards, although Riddler was not surprised to see them. He's very suave and not rattled at all by their presence, because he knows what he's got in store at an amusement park, which apparently he's been preparing for 2 years. This guy's put a lot of work into his revenge plot. He's adapted an entire maze there and made it basically into a life-size version of his game, Riddle of the Minotaur, complete with flame-throwing dragons, etc. And of course, Batman and Robin get there, and they have to go through the maze. And I was rewatching this earlier today. Obviously, I've seen this episodes probably several times over the years, but I was rewatching it. I didn't quite get through all of it earlier today. Ran out of time. But, I remember, obviously, in the end, they rescue Mockinridge. They solve Nygma's riddles, that along the way, and make their way to the center of the maze and, save the day, etc. But there was a funny little moment here I wanted to highlight where, like, the Riddler up to this point has used several puns already, and he's intelligent. He likes wordplay, word puns, riddles, obviously. And before I get to that, actually, I want to read for you here. I wrote down Riddler's, at least in the animated series, Riddler's first words to the Batman. Bat something, isn't it? You know what happens to gate crashers, don't you? They have to match wits with the Riddler. So, if I remember, I will compare those first words to Paul Dano's first words later. I have a feeling his will probably be more interesting. But man, I still love me. Apparently, John Glover, who's the man. I loved him in Smallville. No surprise. When I found out he did the voice, I was like, of course. I'm surprised I didn't catch it, because he has a pretty distinctive voice. But anyway, so we find out that Batman already knows. He's already figured out that Enigma is the Riddler, which, I mean, he just has a tiny little eye mask, so it's not that hard. But, he already knew before he got there, because he's Batman. And I have a little side note here, like as I was watching it up to this point, I was like, the music is so great in the animated series, right? And, and when you know it, I cannot think of her name right. Dang it. Deborah something? That's going to bother me. I'm going to have to look it up and add it to the show notes later. But the composer, they made, like, I've watched special features and interviews, obviously, with, like, Paul Dini and the other creative forces behind the animated series. I used to have a DVD set. I forget what happened to it. I currently have volume 2, the entire volume on my Apple account. But the choice to use a live orchestra for a cartoon was awesome. Like, just an awesome choice. Walker? Is that her last name? My brain is pulling out Deborah Winger, which I know is not right, because she's an actress that was in, like, Officer and a Gentleman and stuff like that. Something Walker? Anyway, I'll look it up later. But the composer, Shirley Walker, that's it, Shirley Walker, that's it. Got it. I knew it was in there somewhere. She does such an amazing job. Like, I could just listen to the music, honestly. I don't know that there's very many cartoons I could say that about, let alone TV shows, for that matter. But yeah, she just does an amazing job building off of what Danny Elfman did in Batman and Batman Returns. But she made it her own. She took it and made it her own for this. And voice casting for the animated series, need I say more than Andrea Romano, the all-star voice caster and voice director for, like, virtually every DC Comics animated series made in the 90s and the 2000s, and basically every animated movie DC has made since then. She is the woman. Yes. Amazing job casting. I mean, the animated series is just so good. Obviously, I've already talked about Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. But yeah, just to Bob Hoskins as Commissioner Gordon, and just, I cannot, Barbara something, the woman who plays Catwoman's voice. I believe her first name is Barbara, ironically. But I just saw her in Fringe, too. She's in Fringe. Cannot think of her name. Alright, I'm going to have to look this up next time I talk about the anime series. I need to know these names pat. Anyway, love the voice acting. So, okay. Anyway, music is great. Obviously, the aesthetics as well, the choice that they made. For those of you who don't know this is such a cool idea. They decided, it was an animation, like, I think back then, like, they're not doing it on computer. They're literally, like drawing, inking, coloring on actual, animation cells, paper and such. But they made the decision to do it on black backgrounds, like all the coloring on background. So like the entire series has this really dark tone, which is perfect for Batman. A brilliant stroke, that. So enough about production design for Batman, and this is turning out to be a long segment, so this may actually end up being the episode, which I'm okay with that, because it's pretty damn cool. Anyway, so another note I have here is Batman had a knife? Like, the Chinese finger torture thing, whatever, that Robin gets stuck in, like, Batman pulls out a knife. First, maybe only time I've ever seen him pull out a knife out of his utility belt. He's about to cut Robin out of it. But anyway, here's something. Here's a little Easter egg. So as Batman and Robin are talking about the Riddler's name, Edward Nygma, they figure out that if you just take the letter of his first name and his last name, it's Enigma or Enigma, a puzzle or riddle, which makes me wonder. Wait, is Edward Nygma his real name? Did he change his first name just so it would be Enigma? Is that his middle name? He just went by Edward. Did he completely fabricate his name? I wonder. So I'm gonna have to look that up, find that out. Trivia challenge. So, so the next riddle that the Riddler asks is, when is the Minotaur's owner as high as an elephant's eye? And, okay, that's not really important. What's more important is, and this is what I was thinking of earlier, had several notes in between, but another pun comes out, and Batman's like, this one is losers ahead. And then right after Riddler says that line, like a couple of, like, no joke, like Russian-style sighs, like, come out of the wall right at head level, and Batman and Robin have to duck so they don't get decapitated. And Batman's like, losers ahead. I don't know what's worse, the traps or the puns. See, this is one of the reasons why I love Kevin Conroy's performance as Batman, and obviously the writing for the animated series. He has a sense of humor. Like, Nolan and Bale pull that off a little bit at times, but tonally, obviously, it's a little easier to do that on a kids' animation show. But they pull it off, and I love it. Like, he walks that line, like, both as Bruce Wayne and Batman, he manages to have that wry humor, and yet somehow it doesn't take away from the gravitas of Batman. And in my opinion, Kevin Conroy pulled that off in a way that no one has yet. Again, I doubt that there's going to be much humor in the Batman. I haven't seen it yet. Those of you who have, don't tell me anything, please. I don't want it any more spoiled. But anyway, I doubt there's going to be much humor. There might be. Might surprise me. Maybe a little bit of interplay between him and Alfred. We'll see. But nobody's quite pulled that off. Ben Affleck did a little bit, and I actually liked Batfleck, believe it or not. I didn't know that I would, but I did. I found myself enjoying Batfleck. Yeah, older Batman. I thought he pulled it off. I thought he did a good job. Anyway, that's a side note. So, I've gone long on this segment, obviously, but that's okay. Like I said, 15 to 30 minutes is my range. So, I'm going to do my final segment and then my closing and get out of here. See ya. So, each week, I'm going to grace you or gift you with a celebrity impression. I've always loved doing celebrity impressions, or just impressions, like doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity, but just impressions. The very first one I remember doing was an Irish accent, as I found out at age 8 that I was at least in part of Irish descent, or that I very likely had some Irish blood in me. So my first memory of doing any kind of vocal impression of either an accent or a real character otherwise, was saying this to my 3rd grade classmates. Top of the morning to you. Top of the morning to you. Something along those lines, Or like, oh, where's me Lucky Charms? Stuff like that. I can do a little better when I have some prep. But suffice to say, and if any of you, by the way, follow me on Instagram. I haven't mentioned that in the podcast so far. Obviously, I've mentioned the podcast on Instagram, but not vice versa. So follow me on Instagram. It's at irreverent_nerd. That's at irreverent_nerd. Check it out. I've got content that's unique to Instagram there, including some impressions that I did. In fact, I just did a little 1 minute, 42 seconds actually, skit of if Jack Black worked in a forensics lab. So imagine that for a second. So I just put one of those out. Done one of Pinky and the Brain. Did one of Joker, actually. Mark Hamill's Joker, of course. And I did one of where Kermit the Frog interviews the Christian Bale Batman. So check it out if you haven't already. And follow me, please. Please do. And I'll follow you back. If one exception, if you have a private account, I probably won't. But if you have a public account where you're posting content as well, I will follow you back. So, and feel free to message me on there as well. Like, if there's a way you want to contact me, you can do it through Instagram. So, anyway, I've used up half of my time here, so I'm going to get right to it. Today's impression, and I think I may stick to reading things like, well, for one, there's no copyright infringement involved here, but today I'm going to read some sonnets from Shakespeare, voiced by Mo Sislak. Hey, is this thing on? All right. Homer. It's Odyssey. No, just kidding. All right, so I'm going to read Shakespeare here. Sonnet number 3. Look in the glass and tell the face thou viewest. Now is the time that face should form another, whose fresh repair if now thou not renewest, thou dost beguile the world unbless some other. For where is she whose fair unreared womb disdains the tillage of thy husbandry? Who is she so fond will be the tomb of his self-love to stop posterity? Thou art thy mother's glass, and she in thee calls back the lovely April of her prime. So thou through windows of thine age shalt see, despite of wrinkles, this thy golden time. But if thou live, remember not to be, die single, and thine image dies with thee. So this has been Mo Sislak reading Shakespeare's sonnet number 3. Tell Homer I said he needs to get his ass back in the bar and drink some beer. So, oh yeah, I don't have to tell Bonnie that because he's always there. I think the man sleeps under the bar. No joke. Anyway, good night, my friends. Thank you for joining me, my dear friends, on this journey today. Join us weekly on Wednesday when we release new episodes. Wait, who's we? When I release new episodes. There might occasionally be a we, but mostly I. Also, check me out on Instagram at irreverent_nerd. Don't forget the underscore.